And here to discuss Lewis's legacy is one of his colleagues, Arkansas Republican Congressman French Hill. Congressman Hill, thank you so much for being here today with us. We appreciate your time. Can we just start with your thoughts and memories on this Saturday?
Well, they're deep. James Clyburn hit it well. John Lewis was an icon. He'll always be remembered in the House. He was a good friend, and I was so gratified that Martha and I were able to cross that Selma bridge with John Lewis and President Obama and President Bush on the 50th anniversary back in 2015. It was a touching moment and one that I'll take the rest of my life as one of my treasured memories in politics.
And the two of you did work on legislation together to expand an iconic civil rights site in your state. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you know, John was inspired by the Little Rock Nine that integrated Central High School back in September 1957. It was a frightening time. The National Guard was called out and activated by President Eisenhower to integrate Central High. And John told me in a very emotional exchange we had on the House floor that he felt Central High was hallowed ground, that he was inspired by the Little Rock Nine that led him to be so active and become a hero and an activist and an icon less than 10 years later. We expanded the Central High National Historic Site together by including the houses that front Central High, and it'll be a lasting memory to his bipartisan work in the House.
And President Obama said that he was inspired by the work of Congressman Lewis and said that this it was part of the groundwork that was laid for him to eventually sit in the White House. And as you know, in 1963, Congressman Lewis was the youngest keynote speaker at that March on Washington. And then he was the last living keynote speaker to actually see the election of the first African-American president. And right before the inauguration in 2009, he wrote this. And we'll put this up. He wrote, quote, "When we were organizing voter registration drives, going on the freedom rides, sitting in, coming here to Washington for the first time, getting arrested, going to jail, being beaten, I never dreamed of the possibility that an African American would one day be elected President of the United States." Again, he wrote that in 2009, right before the inauguration. What are your thoughts on that? Did he ever talk to you about the importance and the significance to him of seeing President Obama elected?
Well, it was a terrific milestone. Think of the long path forward towards that more perfect union. And back in the 1960s, when John was being beaten and attacked by dogs and sprayed with fire hoses, there's no way he could see our country coming together and electing an African American as our president. And so for him, that was a crowning achievement. But the work's not done. That was a crowning achievement in the March on Civil Rights, but we still fight to make sure that there's equal justice under the law. And John fought till his last breath yesterday for equal justice under the law. And he did that with a spirit, as James Clyburn said, of warmth and nonviolence and love as he reached out across the aisle and all across the country.
The nonviolent, that really is the key here to his legacy. In his fight for civil rights, he was also nonviolent. And I just want to put up one more quote he said, because I think it's an interesting reflection on what's going on today. This is what he said on that speech on the Mall back in 1963. He said, "We are tired. We are tired of being beaten by policemen. We are tired of seeing our people locked up in jail over and over again. And then you holler, be patient. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom, and we want it now." But again, even as he said this, he remained a non-violent activist. Your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is the House is a poorer place without John Lewis's beautiful voice and his beautiful message that brought our House together. And so we'll miss John Lewis, but he lives on with the leadership he delivered in the 1960s, his 3 decades in Congress, and now the USS John Lewis will sail the seas as a new class of naval vessel, and we'll be talking about John Lewis for many decades to come.
Absolutely. Congressman French Hill of the state of Arkansas, thank you so much for your time today. Be well.
Thank you, Alicia.